Redeemed, rehabilitated, and real entertaining. This is the Carl Jackson Podcast.
All right, welcome to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. I'm glad that you could join me today. This is your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. Today, I'm going to talk to you about transmaxing. You guys ever heard about this? I hadn't heard about it until today, but it is another tool that the left is using, I believe, to attack manhood. So I want to talk about this. I want to dive into it. But first, I want to give you some of the headlines of today. You guys may have heard that the House, the Republican House leadership and the Republicans have come up with a plan, basically a rules package, if you will, the way in which they'll run the House. Had to Daily Mail, new House GOP majority passes a rules package with only one Republican defection, allowing just one member to call a vote to oust the speaker, ending proxy voting and launching new select committees. Now, everyone is focusing on or fixated on this idea that one member is allowed to call a vote to oust the speaker. This happened. Listen, this has been happening for over 200 years. Nancy Pelosi put a stop to it. We're going back to regular order. This is the way things were in the past. We're just returning to the way things were in the past. You and I get more say at the table because we can speak to our reps. We can share our dissatisfaction with our reps, and now they can do something about it. And if there's enough pressure, if Kevin McCarthy doesn't keep his promises, then you and I, we can call our congressmen and women and say, hey, remove this guy. We need a new speaker. That's the way that it should be. So don't get bent out of shape hearing that. The good news is most of the rules packages or most of the things that the House Freedom Caucus wanted, they got, which means you and I should be happy campers and not in complete hysterics like I saw some people in conservative media last week. Absolutely insane. So that is good news. Again, they passed they passed the package Monday night, 220 to 213, with only one Republican defection. That was Representative Tony Gonzalez of Texas. Tony Gonzalez, I think he's a little moderate there. And he did it. He said he did it because of defense spending. But honestly, he came out and said some stuff earlier that leads me to believe that he's a bit of a moderate. So check me if I'm wrong. Another one, Dan Crenshaw, he didn't vote at all. He may be upset that he didn't get to oversee the committee that he wanted to be ahead of. The package includes some, but not all, of the concessions McCarthy made to the group of 20 House Republicans to win his speakership bid. It did include the demise of proxy voting, virtual participation, obviously, in the congressional committee meetings, which Democrats did approve during the COVID pandemic. So no more virtue signaling when it comes to proxy voting. That is really, really, really good. Restoring the motion to vacate is in there. Also voting on term limits. Now, some may say that is a show vote. Well, the squad wanted a show vote when it came to Medicare for all. Basically, they wanted to put other Democrats on the ballot, so to speak, on blast. And so the House Freedom Caucus wants to do the same thing. You guys aren't for term limits, then say it so that the people know. The Freedom Caucus got a little more power. They'll receive 3 of the 9 seats on the powerful House Rules Committee, which has a huge say in whether bills and amendments are brought to the floor. They're going to end the omnibus spending. So that is a very good thing. No more of these bills where you put a bunch of stuff in and people get a bunch of carve outs and pork and all this kind of stuff. It's going to be single issue bills, lower spending. They got concessions to cap government spending at lower levels, implemented just 2 years ago. This means programs will get cuts. Probes into probes. So a new judiciary subcommittee to focus on the weaponization of the federal government. That would include investigating the FBI, the DOJ, and I'm reading right from the Daily Mail. So forgive me here. The DOJ's raid on a former Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate and Homeland Security. Also a decrease on a GOP primary contest. So basically, if I'm a Republican and I'm running against a Republican in the primary, the House Speaker can't chime in because someone says, hey, listen, I don't want this guy to be Speaker or something like that. So they go ahead, and it happened right here in Central Florida with Anthony Sabatini in District 7. He said he wasn't going to vote for Kevin McCarthy as the Speaker of the House. You know what Kevin McCarthy did? He sent over $1 million or ran over $1 million in negative ads to defeat Anthony Sabatini, another Republican in the primary. Now, it seems like we may have gotten a good Republican anyway in Corey Miller, but nonetheless, Anthony Sabatini was clearly winning the race in the primary until there was just a gang of negative ads on TV, on radio, you name it. Just making him look like a straight out kook. And as a result, he lost the primary, in my opinion. And that was in great part to Kevin McCarthy. So that's gone bye-bye. At least for now, reinstating the Holman Rule. Basically, the Holman Rule allows amendments to reduce lawmaker salaries and fire federal employees and to cut programs. So if you have somebody that's nothing but dead weight in the federal government and they're a nuisance or like a Mayorkas or Mayorkas that's just destroying the borders or allowing our southern border to be destroyed, you can just stop paying the guy. And then he can decide whether or not he wants to stay. Adding time to review bills, 72 hours to review bills. What's wrong with that? I can't believe all of the hysteria last week. I expected it from the left, but to see it from conservatives was just, oh my God, so disconcerting. So that is one thing in the news. Also, one of the first bills that the House is working on or has passed, and that is a bill. Have they actually passed this? Let me make sure that I get my information correct. The House GOP kicks off majority with vote to defund 87,000 IRS agents. So that is very, very, very important. Now, listen, let's be real about this. The Senate is controlled by Democrats. The White House is controlled by Democrats. But it is important that we have this fight. And it is important that we put the pressure on Democrats. Remember AOC's dress that said tax the rich? Well, now the Democrat Party is a party that wants to tax the poor, tax the middle class. We need to call them out on this. We don't need a new army of IRS agents to come after people struggling in Biden's economy. All right, that's absolutely insane. So House Republicans Monday night made good on a campaign promise by spending or by approving a bill that would zero out funding from the Inflation Reduction Act that is intended to dramatically increase the IRS enforcement abilities, and Democrats and the government say to target wealthy tax cheats when that's not what it's for. They're literally going after the poor and the middle class. The conservatives have cast the money another way over pushback from the Treasury Department. Our first bill will repeal funding for 87,000 new IRS agents because the government should be here to help you and not go after you. Man, they are so right. That's what House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said upon taking the gavel early Saturday morning and ushering in a new session under Republican control. So good for them. That's something that has to be done. I hope that they succeed at it. You guys make sure that you call your senators and keep the pressure on. Just because we won the House doesn't mean that we get to kick back. No, it means the fight is just starting. So keep that in mind. I want to be sure to remind you that this podcast is brought to you by MyPillow.com. Mike Lindell at MyPillow.com, obviously a patriot. But also, here's the reason that I love it, besides the fact that they create great products and help us get a good night's rest. I slept on my pillow last night, and I just used their towel not too long ago. So I'm not blowing smoke up your butt with this stuff. I like the products, all right? So go to MyPillow.com. Click on that radio listener square. Use my name, Carl, C-A-R-L, and there is an array of deals that are available still at MyPillow.com. When you click on the radio listener square and you use the promo code Carl, C-A-R-L, or give them a call, 1-800-858-0263. They do have a 6-piece towel set that's available right now for only $39.98. 2 bath towels, 2 hand towels, 2 washcloths. That is a major discount. All you do is go to MyPillow.com, click on that radio listener square. Also, please follow me on social media, The Carl Jackson Show on Instagram, The Carl Jackson Show, wherever I am, The Carl Jackson Show. And please subscribe to this podcast, like, share it, rate it, review it. That'll help us move up the charts. We would certainly appreciate that. Okay, so we talked about the IRS agents. We talked about the ruse package being passed, where the Freedom Caucus got a lot of what they wanted, which is beneficial to all of us. I got to give you some sad news. I'm sure many of you that are conservative, or perhaps you're not, maybe you're moderate Democrat, whatever you may be, you may have heard the news that Diamond and Silk passed away. Man, it was shocking. It was shocking. I didn't know. I didn't know she was sick. Maybe some of you did. Apparently, from what I understand, from what I've read, she's had complications for perhaps a couple of months, or nearly a couple of months. I don't know all the ins and outs. I don't know the whole story, but this was certainly unexpected for many in the conservative movement. I think we have a video clip that we want to run of Diamond and Silk is the sister of Diamond. So I can't imagine the pain that she's going through right now. I mean, they were the dynamic duo when it came to Black conservatives. They were so funny and representative of I think a new era of Republicanism. I mean, these were women, middle-class women, hardworking women, calluses on your hands type women that worked average everyday American jobs to get by. And then they blew up on social media supporting Trump. And they got to see their American dream come to fruition. And it was so cool to see, because I think it was also, they were also just they kind of represented what the era that Trump brought in. I mean, there was a lot of fun. They were really fun. They were common sense, fun, common sense, common people. You know what I mean? Just your average everyday American that got their American dream, but they were so common sense and they were relatable, right? To all of us that were just, not some billionaire, not the elite class that the Democrat Party and many in the Republican Party cater to. They were your working class American, and they represented, I think, the era that Trump brought in, where politics was fun again on the right, where politics was feisty. They weren't afraid of a battle, and they were just common sense. So it's very sad to see that Diamond and Silk has passed away. And for those of you that might know, she's the one that stood out in the forefront. She was the more talkative of the two. So it's just very sad to hear. But I think they made some inroads. I really do. I think they made inroads in the Black community. I think they made inroads amongst liberals, period, because when you see these women, Black women, just speaking the truth when it comes to conservatism, God, and politics, it's just refreshing. It's simply refreshing. So I'm saddened to hear the news, and we wish Silk the best. Make sure you just pray for Silk and those that Diamond left behind. All right. So here's a video clip that we just want to run for you in memory of her before we get on to our topic here.
Welcome, Diamond and Silk. Look at you lovely ladies. That's terrific.
We're always strong. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, baby. I want an outsider. Yeah. I don't want an insider.
No. So Silk cut the TV on, girl. Donald is announcing he's running for president.
And I did.
And that's what we need running our country, baby. She said, girl, this is going to be our next president.
We got to secure this border. We got to make America great again.
Oh, yes.
Don't you secure your house?
Yeah.
Ain't the White House secure?
Yeah.
Well, America's house should be secure.
Well, see, that's the same thing you all said about the Hispanics. Mm-hmm. And look at what he did in Nevada.
Here's the damn deal, Megan Kelly, or Kelly Bacon, whatever your name is.
Come down to the Muslim. He said temporary
ban.
Rosie O'Donnell started that whole foolishness.
Yeah.
We can't have people coming up in here wanting to chop off our heads.
That's right.
We can't have that.
I'll drink to that.
Drink to itself. NBC threw us up under the bus and backed that bus back up on us. We were supposed to have an interview with a guy by the name of Steve Kanoski. Well, we found out that he used to work for Dunkin' Donuts. Maybe you should go back and report news to them donuts. But this bitch right here doesn't thank you for censoring me.
You want to be protected, or do you want to be sitting up riding dirty? You know, when I look at Marco Rubio, he may have had a gay lifestyle in his past. Mm-hmm. So
what? And this is going to be our next president of these United States. Yes. Yes.
So they better hope he be the nominee.
That's
so
right.
that the Republicans can win an election and we can go ahead and whoop Hillary or Bernie.
Don't get it twisted.
That's right.
All right, that's Diamond and Silk. Sadly, again, Diamond has passed away. So just pray for Silk. I mean, it is going to be, obviously, she's going to miss her sister dearly, and we'll all miss her. But there's nothing like losing a family member, especially you can tell the love that they had for each other. The way that they played off of each other, which is absolutely amazing. Something that I don't think we've seen in the political realm, certainly not in the conservative movement. And that's exactly what the conservative movement needed. So just wanted to make mention of them. Oh, this is a quick piece of news, too. I'm going to talk about this. I'll be on the Officer Tatum show later today. I hope you guys will check me out there. But Biden's Mexico trip was upended by a report that classified documents were found at his office, at his little think tank. I think it was at Penn State. So as the vice president, this guy took some some classified documents with him. That's a big no-no, right? You can argue as to whether or not Trump should have had documents. We know that Obama took documents. He had a warehouse full of them. Also, the same is true for George W. Bush, not necessarily a warehouse, but a lot of these guys take a lot of that paperwork with them, maybe for memorabilia, maybe to sort through after they leave the White House, right? Sometimes they don't know whether they're going to win or lose. And if they stay in the White House for the total of 8 years, they have a team of people that come and gathers all of that information. They go through it with a team of people, or the team of people does. They sort out what they can keep, what they're going to give back to the National Archives, and they what's the word that I'm looking for? They just go back and forth. They go back and forth, trying to negotiate with the National Archives what they're going to keep, what they aren't going to keep. And remember, the only things that are classified are the things that the commander-in-chief, the president of the United States, makes classified. So this is really big news, because that means that Joe Biden took papers that he was not supposed to take. This is a big deal. The left is going to try to sweep it under the rug. We're not going to sweep it under the rug here. All right, now let me get onto this topic of transmaxing. And again, you're listening to the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Please subscribe wherever you find your podcast. Please find me on social media, and please, again, support my sponsor, MyPillow, Mike Lindell, MyPillow, the great patriot, making great products, American jobs. If you want to support America and you want to sleep well, you want to walk well with some of the slippers that they have out, you want to make sure that you dry off when you get in the shower, you want towels that actually absorb, go to mypillow.com, use the radio listener square, Carl, C-A-R-L, or give them a call, 1-800-858-0263. And guys, they have tons of products there, so it's not just those. So just go shop the website. You're looking for a gift, birthday gift, anniversary gift, whatever it may be. Just go shop the website and use the promo code Carl. And all of these, once you use that promo code, you'll get some major discounts there. All right, now, transmaxing. You guys ever heard of this? Gabe, you ever heard of transmaxing? You seem like you would be in touch with, not in touch, I don't mean to say that, but maybe you would have heard of this. I hadn't heard of this. So this caught my attention. This is from the Daily Caller News Foundation. All right, so transmaxing, meet the online community, encouraging gender transitions for sexually frustrated men. This is very fascinating to me, because it never ceases to amaze me, the lengths that the left will go through to undermine masculinity, the lengths that the left will go through or go to in order to undermine manhood and attack manhood. And I would argue that what we're about to go through as a result of the attacks that manhood or men have experienced in America as a result of the left. Their constant bombardment and attacks on masculinity, and the left calling masculinity toxic. Masculinity isn't toxic. We need more strong men. We need more strong men. And we don't need jerks. We don't need people that abuse people, men that abuse people, whether that's verbally, whether that's physically, but that man that wants to go to, that wants to protect a woman, that wants to open the door for a woman, that's willing to sign up for the military, go out and fight and die. We need that type of masculinity. Every society needs that masculinity in order to survive. It's as simple as that. So we go to the column. Here's the summary. A large online group of men who consider themselves involuntarily celibate Involuntarily celibate, remember that phrase, or incels, as they call themselves, believe they can build better, more successful lives by transitioning to female. All right. These guys are calling themselves incels, INCELS. That stands for involuntarily celibate. These so-called transmaxers believe society is rigged against men. They may be right there, particularly those who aren't conventionally attractive, but argue that men can and should adopt female identities, even if they have never experienced gender dysphoria, in order to improve their lives and their sexual prospects. So there's a lot there. Again, these so-called transmaxers, 1, believe society is rigged against men. 2, particularly those who aren't very attractive. 3, but argue men can and should adopt female identities, even if they have never experienced gender dysphoria. And 4, in order to improve their lives and their sexual prospects. I would argue that anyone that wants to become a transmaxer is experiencing a level of gender dysphoria. Here's a quote from a prominent transmaxing advocate. This person wrote, "If you do not currently feel like living as a male or as a female, you might have to work on fixing that." Fixing that. Identifying as a male or being emotionally attached to a male body is bad for you if being male results in you living like a bad life. This has to be written by a transgender, someone that suffers from gender dysphoria, in my opinion. Involuntarily celibate. Okay, so a community of men consider themselves, again, involuntarily celibate. They call themselves incels. They're transitioning to the opposite sex. Why do they want to do it? They want to do it to escape sexual rejection, according to this column, improve their lives. And also, according to numerous posts on Discord servers and other social media platforms that are reviewed by the Daily Caller, this is what they want to do. They want to escape the tortures of this male body. All right. Many transgender advocates argue that one's sense of higher gender is innate. It's unchangeable. It's largely unrelated to one's biological sex. Members of the online transmaxer community encourages one another to transition for personal gain. So this is the difference, supposedly, between the transmaxer movement and the transgender movement. The transmaxer movement wants to transition from male to female because there's some personal gain, they believe, to it, particularly if you're an unattractive male. And they say this is, again, you can transition regardless of whether or not you have gender identity issues. I would argue that the only way you would transition is if you're experiencing some level of gender dysphoria. So they recommend undergoing cross-sex hormones and identifying as a female. Transmaxers argue that men can improve their sex lives, access a new dating pool, escape the perceived hardships of being a man. I'd like to know what the perceived hardships of being a man, being a man are. I mean, taking care of business, going to work. It's amazing to me. Here's what's so scary about this. The influence, because this is a small community. Apparently, this is a community of about 1,200 members that belong to this transmaxing group online. And a lot of people might say, Carl, that's so minuscule. I mean, just 1,200 people. I mean, a lot of people say the same about Twitter. Twitter is nothing compared to Facebook. Twitter is nothing compared to Google, but I would argue it is, because I would argue that the people that you find on Twitter tend to be the most vocal, right? Tend to be the movers and shakers, tend to be the people that will move society. It may not be a influencer or a professional influencer per se, but maybe it's the most boisterous at the Thanksgiving table or at Christmas holidays. So a very small group of people can make massive change. We just watched what the Freedom Caucus did last week, didn't we? 20 people. So a very few amount of people can absolutely move mountains. But here's where it gets very disconcerting to me. Here's a 17-year-old Reddit user, and here's what he had to say. He asked the transmaxing community for advice about whether he should medically transition to female, citing perceived failure as a man problem. He's not a man. He's only 17 years old. His brain isn't even fully developed yet. And he's asking these people who more than likely suffer from gender dysphoria, where they're not completely in their right mind, for advice. This is the danger of social media and the impact these small groups can have. And they can spread exponentially. Their ideas can spread exponentially. But here's a quote from the 17-year-old, which is so sad to me. He says here, I was 7 years old when I started praying to God to let me become a girl. I tried transmaxing when I realized that there's not much you could change just by working out and getting a haircut, bro. He said, got hit with this dilemma of wanting to be female, couldn't. So I did my best to be a man, failed. Now I'm back to the start. So again, he's only 17 years old. Also, this is a young man who may have gone through or may have had feelings of, am I a girl? Maybe he was teased. I don't know. Maybe he had family members that teased him. Maybe he had an aunt or uncle or dad or mom that said something like, oh, you're so girly or what. And then kids internalize that and they start asking themselves a question. Am I a boy? Am I a girl? And they start looking at life through the lens of other people's words and thoughts. So this is why this stuff is so dangerous. And I'm not exactly sure that that's happened, but I think we all can relate to that. We've all been little boys. We've all been little girls. Don't sit here and tell me you never questioned that. We all had tons of questions growing up. Tons of questions growing up. It's amazing. It's amazing. Now he says, he failed at being a man. The guy hasn't even become a man. He's a kid. He says, I'm lost and I don't see the finish line anywhere near. I just don't want my future to be as hopeless as it is now. This is a kid that needs someone to reach out to him and tell him that there's a God and that he has a purpose in life, that he wasn't designed to be a woman, that God intentionally designed him to be a man. And what is he going to do about it? This is a time when he needs someone to come and step up and to be a male role model for him and to help direct him. But what does he get instead when he goes to this social media outlet? Here's a comment from a top comment that read this: you're trans. That's the comment responding to the 17-year-old boy. You're trans. Leave this incel stuff behind. Leave this incel stuff behind. Incel, again, spelled I-N-C-E-L, means involuntarily celibate. So leave this incel stuff behind and transition. You aren't cis. Can't force yourself to be. You need to be yourself to be happy. You need to be yourself to be happy. So he's not cis. I guess that's cisgender male. I think that's just straight male. I believe that's what that is. I don't keep up on all the lingo because I believe a lot of this stuff is a changing fad, and I think we need to fight for objective truth in society. So I don't think we should even buy in to all the lingo and the narrative. And it isn't to say that we shouldn't understand some of it. Some of it I do, but you just can't keep up with this stuff. But be yourself. You need to be yourself to be happy. Well, to be himself, he needs to be who God created him to be, and that is a young man. A young man. You aren't cis. You can't force yourself to be. He's not a girl, and he can't force himself to be that either. That's why this stuff becomes so dangerous. That's where the mental dysfunction just compiles, like compounding interest. And these people end up not even more delusional, but psychotic at times and suicidal at times. It's very dangerous. But this movement is gaining steam, apparently online on places like Reddit, because they believe that men, being a man, makes their lives worse. They believe that they're being denied affirmative action opportunities. These are some of the arguments that they're hearing online. Being a man makes your life worse. I guess makes your life harder. I'm assuming that's what they mean by worse. Being denied affirmative action opportunities. So instead of having these opportunities to propel in life and get grants and scholarships, women are taking up the scholarships. Apparently, women supposedly have the upper hand, they say, in romantic relationships, and they lack empathy and a lack of empathy from others. So this is really funny to me because women supposedly have the upper hand in romantic relationships. This just says that these men are very much so weak, very much so timid, not willing to be bold, not willing to not confident in themselves. That's what this screams to me. There's a moderator that goes by the alias of Ventilogy. And he says transmaxing is about transitioning from personal gain rather than focusing on things like gender identity. He goes on to say what matters when it comes to medical transition is whether or not said transition would actually be beneficial. Thus, the extent to which gender identity is innate does not inform us much regarding when medical transition is appropriate. This is a guy that's living in a delusion and has no idea. The transition manifesto or the TRANSMAXXING manifesto lays out a bunch of benefits for the male to female transition. And they say this: transitioning again improves sexual satisfaction through cross-sex hormones. Wait a minute. Sexual satisfaction through cross-sex hormones. Spoken like a true person suffering transgender, suffering with gender dysphoria. Access to different pool of sexual partners. Who would that pool of sexual partners? See, it's amazing to me. They talk about the benefits of this, but I'm assuming you open up your world to a bunch of other people that are transmaxing, that are in promiscuous communities, if you will, just going out and thinking about this community is over focus or hyper focus on sex. And when I say that, I'm talking about the radical LGBTQ community. There's a hyper focus on sexualization, hyper focus. And it's like, we don't go around as heterosexual men and women saying, guess what? We're heterosexual. It's part of us, but it's not all of us. And the LGBT, the lesbian, let me just say lesbian and gay. I don't do the bisexual trans. It just drives me nuts. All right. But there's a hyper focus on sexualization. And I just think that's unhealthy. That's unhealthy. It's sad. It's really sad to me. Again, they say transitioning improves the sexual satisfaction again through the cross-sex hormones. Access to different pool of sex partners. Those who transition get access to female-only spaces. Sounds like a horny man. You ask me. And they're able to extract resources from males. The manifesto claims. I don't know what they mean by that. Here's what this active person in the transmax community says. Since females have the upper hand on the dating market, transitioning from male to female will usually improve your option when it comes to getting sex. In addition, the sex you enjoy as a female will be of higher quality. I don't understand that. Obviously not because I'm not in that world, but I don't understand what this person means by that. Will it just be just rough, vulgar? I don't know. Plentiful? I don't know what this person means by that. Men should transition, he says, even if they consider themselves not to be gender dysphoric, which is weird to me, because this lets me know that this person understands that there's some inner struggle going on, right? In the membrane. There's a struggle going on. It tells me that these people know that gender dysphoria isn't necessarily natural. I mean, that it is a mental disorder. It's amazing. So men should consider it, even if they have no gender dysphoria. And this is what the manifesto argues. One can try to induce gender dysphoria, the manifesto says, by watching pornography, especially from the female perspective. How do you watch pornography from the female perspective when you're a dude? How do you do that? The only way you can do that is if you have something called autogenophilia. We had a gentleman on here before that talked about that, where men literally get sexually aroused by looking at themselves in the mirror dressed like women. As a matter of fact, oh God, what was his name? He's big in the transgender community. Oh man, I forget his name. I did a podcast with him. Anyway, Walt Heyer. I believe it's Walt Heyer. Anyway, autogenophilia, people become sexually aroused by dressing as women. Some men do. And he believed that's what Bruce Jenner had or has. Now, this active transmaxer ended up walking back some of the advice that he had given in response to a report saying, I think it's the Daily Caller's report, saying it's not clear this approach could actually work. The moderator also downplayed the incel to transgender pipeline. Of course he did. showing a year-old internal poll, which found that a significant portion of the group's members experienced significant gender dysphoria before transitioning. Of course they did. All of these people are trying to, and obviously the left is going to run rampant with this, because the left's goal, the Democrats' goal, in my opinion, is to create victim groups and then become the champions of those victim groups just so they get their vote. So create this new identity of people, and then Democrats or those on the left will say, hey, we support you, be who you want to be. And then those people will say, yes, we've got somebody on our side, vote for them. That's how this works, folks. That's how this works. Here's a quote from the manifesto. If you do not currently feel like living as a female, you may have to work on fixing that. That's what I read earlier. Identifying as male or being emotionally attached to a male body is bad for you if being male results in you living a bad life. Now, everyone has a bunch of bad in their life. What is a bad life? Bad decisions? Here's what a clinical psychologist had to say, a guy by the name of Joseph Burgo. He's an advisor to GenSpec, an organization that is critical of some of the aspects of gender transitions, and said concerns about being insufficiently masculine were common among his clients. Man, you don't think in a world where you're constantly bombarded with this idea that there's toxic masculinity, where you go to the workplace, you go to college, and you mac to a girl and you're a sexual predator. And I'm not saying real sexual predators don't exist, all right? But you can't say anything to a girl. You can't look at a girl without. There was something that I saw online the other day where a man was in a gym looking at an influencer. I mean, a very attractive woman, very nice body, and the guy was sitting there looking. I mean, just lusting at the woman. He's in the gym working out. She's in the gym working out. She's wearing this spandex type clothing. She's very well formed. All right, and then so he's sitting there staring at her. I don't know if he's single or not, but her butt and stuff is pretty much. I mean, right in his. Men are gonna look. I hate to tell you, men are going to look. Now, if you continue to look at that, that's another thing. But that's the way that men work. That's why God wants us to try to restrain ourselves. But it is a fight. There's this book, Every Man's Battle. Steve Otterburn, I think Dr. Henry Cloud. It's a battle for all men. And you have to try to restrain that. But this is amazing. The clinical psychologist says, in my work with men who have a detransition, I find dread about inadequate masculinity to be a common thing. So that's what a lot of these people are feeling if they're involuntarily celibate and they don't happen to be gender dysphoric. They probably have very low confidence. Maybe they're not the most attractive men, but I'm going to show you something in a second. And so these people take advantage of those men. But turns out most of the people associated with this group did, in fact, have gender dysphoria. The psychologist goes on to say, like the incels profiled in the Friedman article, they were driven by a fear, and that's the article that I'm reading now, I believe, driven by a fear that they wouldn't measure up as men and therefore would never be attractive to women. Hence, they transitioned so as to become what they desired but could not get, a dynamic also common in autogenophilia, he says. All right, now here's what another psychotherapist said, Stella O'Malley, who seems to be liberal. She says, and she's the founder of GenSpec, and she says that the transmaxing phenomena, so they're associated with the same group, indicates that social influence does play a role in transgenderism and address the role of autogenophilia in the transgenderism debate. Have you guys wondered why this stuff has blown up all of a sudden? Like literally in the last 2, 3, 4 years, everybody knew that gender dysphoria was an issue. And now, we're out and about. No, it's still a mental disorder. But there's some people that are behind this movement that are really trying to not just emasculate men, I think, so that they can eventually crush men if they want to take over societies like they're trying to do in Brazil right now. But they want men on their side. These leftists, these globalists do. They want these men to be weakened. That's how you take over society. You got a bunch of weak men. And I think that's what they're looking to do. O'Malley goes on to say, sadly, not many people know about autogenophilia and don't realize that this can be a driver for some people's desire to transition. It is for this reason that some women do not want trans women in their spaces. Of course, this is not the whole story. There are many reasons for a person to medically transition. We need to be able to have respectful discussions about these issues so that we can come to best outcomes for the majority. Now, I would disagree with this doctor or this psychotherapist. I'm sorry, there are not many reasons for a person to medically transition, except for a money-hungry, power-hungry doctor of some sort that has bought into this nonsense or just wants to fill his or her pockets. That's the only way to medical, or the only reason to medical transition. You have an industry that is taking advantage of you. Here's what a rare case of a straight guy, here's what he had to say. One transitioner in the transmixing community who said they did not experience gender dysphoria reported that adopting a female identity resulted in an improved sex life and avoiding military service. So an improved sex life, and he got to avoid military service. This person says, I'm 25 years old, and I started the transition half a year ago. During these 6 months, I had relationships with and sex with 2 girls. One of them is quite a porn actress, he says. And I also avoided the threat of getting into the Army. I really feel happy, and I still don't have any dysphoria. How does he know? How does he know? And I would submit to you, that a person that is playing around with this stuff, this transmaxing stuff, if they start dressing like a woman, I would contend that maybe these people go out to clubs, and you know how I don't drink, but I've been around people that have back in the day and the heyday and stuff. You know, and you watch it on TV, you hear about it all the time, and you guys might know. All right, alcohol loosens you up a little bit. Maybe this has the same effect. Maybe these guys dressing as women, this guy dressed as a woman claims to have had sex with 2 women. Apparently that wouldn't have happened before. So maybe what happened is this guy just loosened up. Maybe this guy started talking, was funny, was confident now. And the woman or the women found him attractive in that way, assuming the story is true. Members of Discord chats within the Transmaxing server offer each other advice on various subjects, including women's fashion and how to obtain cross-sex hormones, and in some cases aggressively encourage one another to transition. There's even a step-by-step instruction manual for transitioning, basically, in the Transmaxing manifesto. Here's another straight guy who said, before all of this, I 100% completely identified as a man. A man's man type of internal mindset, very heterosexual. It all started when I got my new therapist 3 months before that, who referred me to a new general practitioner he knows. Obviously, I told him nothing about being incel or hating females, only that I always felt like a girl. You didn't tell him anything except that you always felt like a girl, which was a massive lie. The individual also expressed a strong hesitation to having genital surgery. He says, I don't know if I can ever go through with having my genitals cut off. I have like a mental block over such a barbaric surgery, the person says. I think I could live fine with just having male parts. I partially identify as female, but no, deep down, I'll always be a man because men are awesome. That's what he says. Apparently, having a penis is awesome to this man, who is obviously suffering with gender dysphoria and claiming to be a straight guy. But this stuff is happening. And the left wants to pretend like this is an everyday occurrence. The left wants to pretend like this is just something that's normal. They're trying to normalize gender dysphoria. They're trying to normalize autogenophilia. They're trying to normalize, the left are, sexual perversion. And guys, we can't let them allow this stuff to happen. Conservatives have to fight back. We have to be a part of this culture war too. And we need to call these people out. There's no such thing as a transgender. Sorry. There's no such thing as transmaxing. This is sad, but this is where we find ourselves in society today. And we have to stand up and we have to fight back against this stuff because our ideas are better, not because we're better, But I believe that objective truth comes from God. And I believe that when God creates a man, he creates a man. When God creates a woman, he creates a woman. It doesn't mean that those people won't be messed up in some way, shape, or form, because we live in a fallen world. But if we grow closer to God and we start asking God what our purposes are on this planet, and then I'm confident that he'll reveal those purposes to us. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Please, again, subscribe wherever you find your podcast, thecarljacksonshow.com, SalemPodcastNetwork.com. Follow me on social media, thecarljacksonshow.com. Guys, please, please, please subscribe, rate, and review. If you do, I would genuinely appreciate it. I appreciate you all so much already. Don't forget to check out my appearance tonight on the Officer Tatum show. Don't forget mypillow.com. Click on that radio listener square. Buy yourself a good night's sleep. Buy yourself some good, nice slippers that keep your feet comfortable. Buy yourself some nice towels. Buy yourself some nice sheets. Buy your dog a dog bed. mypillow.com. Promo code Carl, CARL. Give them a call. 1-800-858-0263. Use that promo code Carl. And until next time, guys, don't grow weary doing good. God bless you.